we're following new developments on the big battle over TikTok. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo calling the video sharing app a significant threat and said the U.S. wants to see all untrusted Chinese apps removed from U.S. app stores. This comes as Microsoft moves forward with a potential deal for the company. CNBC's David Faber reporting today the price tag for a TikTok takeover could come in as high as $30 billion. While shares of Microsoft have rallied in hopes for a deal, the tech giant's long history with China could actually raise some regulatory red flags. Joining us now is Longview Global's Dewardrick Neal. He's a former senior China policy analyst for the Department of Defense. Dewardrick, welcome back to the show. Great to have you with us.
Great to be back.
What sort of hurdles would this deal face, since it was effectively brokered by the Trump administration?
Yeah, very good question. Listen, we all know that Microsoft has had a very long history in China dating back to 1992. That history has not always been smooth. At the moment, they're being search engine operates in China. They have a research and development center there. And so there's been a lot of talk, as you allude to, about divestiture. But look, I think that's misaligned given what the facts are. What Microsoft has to do is prove to investigators that they can manage and secure TikTok user data better than ByteDance can. That's the task. And while the history of Microsoft is interesting, I don't believe that it's particularly relevant from the U.S. side, because I don't believe a company that gets 2% of its revenue from China gives China much leverage over Microsoft. Microsoft, in my view, has to focus on convincing CFIUS that it can do a better job with managing data. That, to me, is the real argument, not whether or not Microsoft is in China's pocket. I don't believe that. Now, the Chinese may demand divestiture as a way to satisfy the masses of the netizens who are quite angry about this deal. But I personally can't see why, from the U.S. side, that would be a real issue, a serious issue. It's about, can you secure the data?
That seems like it would be an easy thing to prove, Dewardrick. I mean, is there a question that Microsoft, a U.S. company based in Redmond, Washington, would not be able to secure data relatively better than a company based in Beijing?
Seems like a pretty straightforward set of questions that they'll ask and that Microsoft has to prove. Look, I have no real insights one way or the other. What I can say is this should be the discussion, not whether or not China has some sort of a 2% leverage over Microsoft.
But the leverage is not just the revenue line. I mean, right, Dewardrick? I mean, the leverage is you know, all sorts of other things for other U.S. companies. It's not just against Microsoft. So we have to think about that and more in a broader sense, not just the 2% revenue hit that Microsoft could potentially take if Beijing chose to retaliate in that way.
Very good point. Look, I think the question here is how will Beijing respond? And I think you point that out in a very good way. Beijing has a couple of options here for response. One, they could take what I call a symmetrical and proportional response, meaning they would target a company in the tech sector and a company that has relative or equal value, both what I would call symbolic value or numerical value to the U.S. and decide to hit back there. And to that point, I don't think it's Microsoft. They could also decide to finally publish this, what they call the unreliables list of companies that they think have done something to harm Beijing's interests. They've been threatening to do this now for almost a year, and that hasn't materialized yet. So this could be the trigger, and that would hit a wide range of companies through a number of various sectors.
Hey, Dewardrick, quick question for you. Given your experience, obviously, in the government, obviously one of the biggest gripes that U.S., the government, and our companies here have against China is this forced technology transfer. Do you think it's a good precedent to set on our part to basically combat forced technology transfer with forced technology transfer? And, you know, just what does that mean for this increasingly globalized tech economy that we're in?
Yeah, very good question. Look, I think that for many companies in this sector, this sort of tit for tat is new, and that there's always been a concern about what the Chinese are doing with respect to cyber and data, and the Chinese have banned a lot of our tech companies. We have not had a situation where we have been prepared to say to China, you must remove your company from from our country, from our network. So that is new, but I don't think it's going to go away. But I think what has to happen is that at some point we have to start having a more a direct discussion about the rules of the road. Right now, it's sort of a it's a wild space that is not defined, and so we have retaliation after retaliation, and companies just can't manage in a situation where they don't know the rules and they don't know when an incident like this may trigger a response from one government or the other. So I'd like to see a process where we really start a cyber dialogue. We really start to talk about putting some guardrails around this, putting a floor under this relationship, and that is just not happening at the moment.
DeWardrick, great to speak with you. Thanks for your thoughts. We appreciate it. DeWardrick McNeil of Longview Global.
Thank you for having me.
Karen, you've been concerned about what China could possibly do to retaliate. As we see the story play out, what comes to mind now?
Well, for one thing, I feel like there will be some sort of retaliation. We always feel like we get punched in the face like we didn't expect it. We should expect it. The other day, I think, God, might have been you talking about, all right, let's say they were to say to Apple, you know what, we're going to take a piece of your revenue from all of your Chinese retail stores. Like, I have no idea if that would be what they would do, but it would certainly be sort of, a very big statement about how we can't just go in and sort of usurp something like TikTok.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about this acquisition of TikTok. Who needs TikTok when you can have this? You're looking at a side-by-side comparison of TikTok and as of today, its newest rival called Reels. That's Facebook's version of the video sharing app. So, I don't know, can you tell the difference? I'm not going to ask Guy because he probably can't. I'll go to you, Dan.
Listen, Facebook has been tremendous at copying other apps. I will tell you that they copied Snapchat. Snapchat's still here, right? And so at the end of the day, to me, I think that they're going to have a very hard time, unless TikTok is shut down, a very hard time getting the kids off of this thing. It is doing a damage to the attention universe that teenagers have right here. It's just really good at what they do. I'll just tell you guys this one thing. I do not think that Microsoft is going to get this company unopposed at a number at 30 billion or below. I just don't get how Zuckerberg or Tim Cook or Sundar Pichai wouldn't call up Trump, tell him some really nice things, maybe even say, hey, listen, we'll cut you in on this thing. It just doesn't seem the way we do business here, that one company will be anointed one thing. I know that those other companies were right in front of Congress last week, regulatory scrutiny, the likelihood of large acquisitions, but I just don't know why those companies would let this happen, why they wouldn't do everything in their power, especially a few months before an election, less than a half a year between what could be another administration and some different thoughts on this sort of thing. So I would be very surprised if Microsoft gets TikTok unopposed at the price that they want.
I don't know why TikTok. I realize Dan is probably TikToking daily. He's saying it's his daughters, but it's actually probably him making goofy videos. But why shouldn't Facebook be able to succeed here, especially when Reels is loaded into the Instagram app, and Facebook has proven that they can dominate in this space? I mean, why isn't TikTok MySpace? So I might be a little bit concerned about Microsoft if I'm an investor or whatnot running in to buy something. I think it's still very early days, and I don't know why there can't be competition. And frankly, I applaud Facebook for this. I don't know that they should be vilified as long as they're not copying patents. There's tremendous competition in the social space, and on some level, engagement is really a function of who makes it easier to do the same thing. So. TikTok is being forced to sell. I agree with what everybody said here. Although, Huawei, we were going through this for the last 2 years, and I don't think we've seen any real retaliation, despite the pressure we put on Chinese biggest hardware company. So I don't know. I think China is going to be tactical. They never react when you expect them to. They react in ways that I think sometimes are much more subtle. But I think TikTok and Microsoft is a very interesting deal for Microsoft. But why shouldn't Facebook be copying them? And why shouldn't Facebook have Reels, which is already out in India, which is one of the first places to ban TikTok, and it's doing very well?